Hi, Kevin Greene here. Welcome to Pathways to the Past. When I was 4 years old, my family moved to the 600 block of North Poplar Street. It was a neighborhood actually kind of similar to the one I live in now over on Calvin Boulevard. But I lived there until I left home, so I grew up in that neighborhood. And there was a sidewalk that went all the way around that block, so if I had to figure the number of times that I rode my bike or tricycle or walked around that block, it'd probably be staggering. Us kids, of course, spend a lot of time outdoors. And something that I remember from over there was, as you're going around the block, occasionally embedded in the sidewalk would be this symbol that I remember. It was kind of oval shaped. I remember it looking kind of like a football shape, and there were some words inside the symbol that was imprinted into the sidewalk. The words never seemed to be very legible, so I never really tried to make out what it said. I remember these symbols being in the sidewalk every so often as you went around the block. And a couple of games I remember us kids playing with those. I have no idea if someone in the neighborhood made this game up or if it was a universally known game or what, but as you're walking around the block with your friends, if you would see one of those symbols, it was considered good luck to be the first one to step on the symbol. And I can remember looking for them and running up and putting your foot down on top of one, and you would say 1, 2, 3, good luck on me. And there was a similar game that was kind of the opposite of that, where it was considered bad luck to step on one. So if you're with your friends, you're always trying to force one of your friends to step on one of them. I hadn't thought about those symbols in the sidewalk for a long time, but late last year, one time I was walking around the neighborhood here in the boulevards, which is pretty common for me. But I was over on Kessler, and I noticed the imprint in the sidewalk over there. And I'm pretty sure it was exactly the same symbol that was over in my old neighborhood. So I did a little research and dug up some information about those symbols. But I'll tell you about that here in a bit. But the first thing I'm going to do is I want to go over to the old neighborhood and walk down the sidewalk and see if I can find those symbols still in the sidewalk. I don't know why they wouldn't be. But then I'll go over and show you the one I found over on Kessler Boulevard. And the one over there, the one in particular, was very well defined and is pretty legible. I'll show you that one, and then we'll talk about them. Okay, here we go. I'll see you over on Poplar Street. Bye. Here I am in the old neighborhood at the corner of 7th and Poplar Street. It's been a long time since I've been over in this area. But we'll take a walk down the sidewalk and see if we can find what I'm talking about. Here we go. This is the house that I moved to when I was 4 years old in 1967, and my parents lived there until 2005. Across the street is the Whitcomb house. Ed Whitcomb was the governor of Indiana while we lived here. Spent some time growing up in that house. Well, I'm not sure why, but I just walked down the entire block and didn't see a single one of those symbols. It's odd. So I remember them being every so often. Maybe they're covered up or just worn, or I don't know. We'll keep going around the block. Okay, you can just barely see the edge of one right here. It's the first one that I've noticed. I think I might have saw a few others of this, but it's just completely worn away, I think. You can see just the edge of it a little bit there. The edge of another one here, just a few more blocks down from the first one. I'm halfway down around the block on Pine Street and finally find one that you can see. It's not legible at all anymore. It's right there. Here's my foot as a comparison to the size. Got a pretty well defined one here on Pine. About 20 yards down is another, so they're definitely more prominent over here on Pine Street. See if we see any more. I think the problem is a lot of these sidewalks, the edges have gotten covered with grass and it's hiding them, plus the fact that they're wearing away. This is always interesting here, this striped sidewalk here. There used to be one over on the other side that matched this one, but they took it out. I think I know why these were, but that'd be for another video. Well, I made the complete walk around the block. Had to stop and talk to two different people that I met that knew me from the old neighborhood. But a little surprised and disappointed that I didn't see more of them. But I did just think of something right over here that I want to film and show you while I'm here. Oh, there's a very light one right there. Missed it earlier. Just barely still see it right there, an oval. Well, that was a disappointment as well. I remembered in front of the house I grew up in and the one next door that in the sidewalk going from the sidewalk out to the street that there was a letter Y in the concrete. I have no idea what that symbolized, but both of them seem to be gone now. Maybe it's just worn away too. But I did get a couple of leads on the place that also may have some stamps, so I'm going to go check those out while I'm out and about. So while I was walking around the block in the old neighborhood over on Pine Street, I talked to a guy who gave me a lead that there may have been stamps in a particular location on South Chestnut Street, so I went there to check it out, and alas, couldn't find those either. So far I've had some disappointments with this video, but in a way I think that illustrates the importance of me doing this particular video, to record what little is left of this little piece of Seymour history before it's completely gone. But now we'll go over to Kessler Boulevard and I'll show you what I know is not a disappointment, because I actually filmed this segment over there last night. So here we go. So I'm walking on Kessler Boulevard along the west side of the street here and coming right up to 3rd Street, and here's probably the most legible markings that I've found. There's one here and there's one right there. So you can read on there H Marberry Contractor, Seymour, Indiana. Another one right here. Wonder if there's any across the street. Yep, 2 markings over here too. Not nearly as legible. And we'll try the other corner. Don't see them over here. And I don't see any on this corner. But there is one right there. This would be in the Stiegelmeyer edition. So from what I've found today, that may be the best example of what I'm talking about left in the city of Seymour. So we've got the name H. Marberry. But before I get into that, I did a internet search to see what I could find out about this particular item, and what I found is that although there's some places in the country that there don't seem to be any of these stamps, and they're called mostly called contractor stamps, or some call them maker's marks. But in most parts of North America, there's a variety of these stamps all through the different towns and cities, big and small. And as a matter of fact, most of them seem to have been just stamped as advertisement of the contractor's workmanship. People really took pride in their workmanship back in the early days. As example is the names and dates that are in the tops of the buildings in the downtown area. But I also found an interesting thing that there are some larger cities where these contractor stamps were required by law, and actually most of them have the name of the contractor and the date that they were stamped, and some cities required them because if the concrete would deteriorate at some point, they had a record in the concrete itself of who did the concrete work and the date that it was done, so if they had to seek some repair work from them on the original contract, they would have the information right there. So that's kind of interesting. And there's some larger cities that have historical societies that are actually documenting these different maker's marks or contractor stamps and making records of them, which from what I've seen with the Seymours today, this is probably a good idea. So H. Marberry. So I started my research on that, and I found out that the guy was Harry Marberry, which is a wonderful name. If for whatever reason I was inclined to change my name, I might consider Harry Marberry. But who was he, and what did he do? Well, he was, I've got my information here. He was born in Seymour, in 1873. His parents were Thomas and Emma Marberry. Thomas, his father, was an engineer for the Ohio and Mississippi Railroad, and his mother and one of his siblings died in 1882 from a smallpox epidemic at the time. Harry spent according to his obituary, spent his entire life in Seymour, living in Seymour, and he became a masonry contractor, and he specialized in concrete work. And let's see, in 1898, he married Rosa Highwig. And then I first started seeing him listed in the paper as doing cement work shortly after the turn of the 20th century, so the early 1900s. He started being awarding contracts for doing concrete work around the city of Seymour. So he specialized in doing sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, and the entire streets. Before 1900, about the only way that they would pave a street was paving them in bricks, which, if you look into it, was actually a really expensive process. I think the concrete was probably more economical and probably better surface and lasted longer. And actually, growing up in the neighborhoods where I was over there today, I remember when I was growing up that the streets were large slabs of concrete over in that area, even at the time. I found a 1908 ad in the Seymour paper where Harry Marberry advertised his cement contracting work or pouring work. I actually found a notice. There were lots of notices in the paper where he was awarded contracts for doing cement work all over the city of Seymour. Matter of fact, at one time I found where he was given a 6-month contract to do all of Seymour's paving work that needed done in that 6-month period of time. But I found it interesting that I found in July of 1911 he was given a contract for the improvements on North Poplar Street. So that tells me that the sidewalks along the front of where I used to live on North Poplar, the block that we just walked around, were poured in 1911. I think I saw where North Pine Street was 1914. He also did work outside of Seymour too. I saw March of 1911 he was doing work, paving work over in Bedford. I saw where he did some in Noblesville. I think it was around 1916 or 1918. He did a really large project up in Indianapolis. He paved nearly a mile of roadway that was leading to Garfield Park up there. And for that job, he advertised in the Seymour paper that he would hire up to 25 men to go work for him to get that job done. And he was paying $5 a day to each person, which was probably not bad wages for that time period. I was interested to find a notice that in August 30th, 1912, he was given the contract to set the cannons at Shields Park into concrete. So the concrete bases that they're on still today were done by Harry Marberry in 1912. So all through from the early 1900s all the way through the 1950s, there were notices and ads in the paper where he did concrete work all over the city. His wife passed away in 1947. I found that Harry Marberry passed away. His obituary was in August 19th, 1960 was the date that he passed. And in his obituary it listed that he was a Knights of Pythias member for 50 years. The obituary did not list any children, and so I'm not sure that he would have any relatives left in Seymour today. I don't know if there are any Marberrys out there or not. So that's the story of the little contractor oval stamps that I remember as a childhood growing up, and this little interesting story of Harry Marberry's life and the contributions that he did all over the city of Seymour. I would be interested if you know of any contractor stamps in other places in Seymour. Particularly would like to find some for someone other than Mr. Marberry. I know there were other concrete contractors in the area at the time, and I know that Harry Marberry didn't do every sidewalk in town. Also would be interested in particularly to seeing maybe a Harry Marberry stamp in another town, Bedford or Noblesville or someplace like that. And even if you know of someplace in Seymour where there's just some interesting imprint in the sidewalk somewhere, whether it be footprints or names and dates or anything like that, or handprints, be interested in checking those out and share them with everybody with this video. So anyway, that's it on this day. Thanks for watching. Bye.